All right, y'all. Today we are going to start off by talking about your new assignment. So this is going to be due at the end of the week for you guys. If you need an extension, just let me know. Don't worry. But we're going to go over your video assignment today. So we are going to start talking about time-based projects. So we're going to talk a little bit about video, and we're going to do a small little sort of mini GIF assignment slash exercise. Over the course of this week, and then our next week is going to be 3D modeling, and we're going to wrap up with a coding exercise. So for this remix video, moving away from static formats in Photoshop, we are going to start with video editing. So objectives for this are to take part in the basics of video editing, explore the relationship between video and audio, and creatively use found footage to create a compelling video remix. You are going to make one-minute video using video from a selection of clips and the found sound audio of your choice. So choose at least 3 source videos. I'm going to link a Google Drive that has a bunch of source videos that you can select from if you would like, but I will give the warning that they are quite basic and boring. They've been provided as all like source videos for previous semesters of this course. So in the 4 years that I've been either working as a TA or lecturer for this course, I've seen the video clips from that like source file uh, thousands of times. So you are also more than welcome to use your own video files, whether that's something that you have filmed, say, on your phone, or whether that's something that you convert from a YouTube file or something like that. And I will explain how to do that if that's something that you're interested in, but I'm sure everybody has stolen stuff from online. So you are going to create a project in Premiere and edit those 3 videos at least using techniques that we're demonstrating. You're going to lay in a soundtrack using found sounds, not songs. Use either the sounds on the course website or find sounds at the link that's provided right here, or any other Creative Commons sound resource website. You're also welcome to like reuse and splice up the sound that is naturally in the videos that you guys are finding or using. And I have a little caveat to this rule, I suppose, compared to maybe some other TAs or instructors for this course. I am fine if you use selections of songs. You just can't lay like one song to be the entire backing audio of your project. So if you want to cut up that song or use bits, like teeny selections of that song, that's totally fine. I just don't want to hear one song throughout the whole video. And then you will export it at this size. I will show you guys the settings for that or how to make sure you're doing that when you're exporting in tomorrow's video. But you have all your guidelines right here. And then you can upload it to YouTube. If you don't want to do that though, it's totally fine. You can just upload your video to Canvas. That is okay with our normal naming conventions. Um, when you're editing your video, think about how its meaning will be transformed by the audio that you choose to include with it. Is it appropriate for the visuals, or is there some sort of difference there that's either creating tension or drama, or is it ironic or just like offbeat in some way? Um, And then I would like for you guys to create a clip log. This is just an example here, and this is just basically making you explain the choices behind the clips that you are using in your project. So a lot of those that I mentioned before that are in the sort of like file that you can pull from for class, the source videos, if you're not using your own. A lot of them are really basic. A lot of them don't go together. There's like the Dune trailer and birds hopping around on logs and like the Weather Channel and stuff like that. And those like don't really make sense a lot of times to use together. So I want an explanation, even just one sentence, for why you are using the clips that you're using and what they do for your video. So we have the classic rubric here. It is due on the 13th, available from today, so you can start working on it. And then we are going to go over basically how to start cutting clips in this video and putting them together in Premiere and just the general Premiere walkthrough. And then in tomorrow's video, we will go over effects and the like. And that should be kind of enough info to get you guys going on this. And then I can kind of toss in a few other tricks and techniques through links from there. So that is going to be our project that we're starting on for this. Now I'm going to jump into Premiere. If you haven't downloaded Premiere yet, you're going to want to access, you're going to want to access your Adobe Creative Cloud app, navigate to your apps themselves, and then you're going to want to download Premiere Pro. You want Premiere Pro, there is a light version of it. God, they have so many applications. Premiere Rush. You do not want to be using Premiere Rush for this. It is a watered down version of Premiere. It's not what we're learning. It's not what you would use in future courses in UW in the art department. So go with Premiere Pro. Make sure that you have that downloaded. And again, that is going to be through Adobe Creative Cloud. This is our last Adobe Creative Cloud app. So just download it. Should take a couple seconds if you haven't already. So that is going to be that. This is going to be Premiere's interface. As with a lot of Adobe applications, it's going to look really, really, really similar across the board. So it's going to look like Photoshop's interface. It's going to look like, if you have experience with it, Illustrator's like opening interface, InDesign's opening interface. So quite familiar in that regard. So you're just going to go over to New Project to make a new one. If you've used Premiere before, you probably know how this goes, but you're going to make a new project. You can name it right out the gate. I would highly suggest doing that. Weirdly, the most frequent problem people encounter with programs like this is just losing the files they were working on and not knowing where they went. So if I can give you any tip starting out in any digital art space early on, it is to keep yourself as organized as you can early on. I'm horrible at it. It's easy to let it get away from you, but if you can try to form good habits with organizing your files as soon as you can, it'll just help you so much in the long run. Obviously for me, it matters far less because we're just demoing stuff, but name your project and then pick a location as to where it's going to go. Normally, Premiere is going to designate files to be saved automatically into your documents folder. If this doesn't work for you, and if you're not going to remember that though, put it in a location that you are going to remember. I know that sounds self-explanatory, but you would be surprised. So just choose your location or just remember that's where it's going. If you want to work off of a template, you can do so, but I would suggest just learning it from the ground up. So we are not going to use a template, and I'm just going to hit create. You can, from the get-go, start importing media. But most likely when you guys are, if you're working alongside my demos, or at least setting up the file alongside my demos, you probably don't have any video media that you're wanting to import quite yet. So we are just going to skip this and get right into how this interface looks, which is a little bit more complex than Photoshop if you're not used to looking at video interfaces quite yet. If you've worked in iMovie or some similar program before, though, this might look very familiar. And unfortunately, I would say for this, you can't use iMovie as an alternative program for this project. If you have some sort of more advanced video editing software, feel free to use that, but I know that's a pretty rare occurrence. The reason we don't want to use iMovie is just that it is it's just lesser. The editing like quality that we have, at least for the purposes of this class, and also for the purpose of this class being a requirement to get you into higher level art courses, we want to make sure that you guys are learning off of what you'll be using in the future in theory. So that's why Premiere. So first things first to talk about when it comes to Premiere is going to be how these windows actually look and what they do individually. It is divided into, you'll see me rearranging things, kind of four quadrants really. I count this bar here and this over here as one quadrant. This just lets me like reorganize how much of the tools I can see. So you have a top left, a top right, a bottom right, and a bottom left. And I will try to refer to them and also have my cursor like very obviously over which one I'm using at a time, but they can also all be selected. So I'm just clicking in these windows, and whatever is highlighted blue is what is currently active. And then you have this kind of very similar to some of your Photoshop menus or like the properties style panel here. Some different menu options that you can use. So you'll be looking at these relatively frequently, not necessarily for today, but in our session for tomorrow, you'll be observing the properties panel. So first things first, when we are working in Premiere, you're going to need videos or audio to start working with. So there's a couple ways to do this. I will make a tiny video of my favorite way to rip or steal videos offline, and I have that program linked for you guys on Canvas as well, if that's something you're interested in. But I'm sure most people here are no stranger to stealing videos from the internet. So that would be one way, surefire way to get clips for your video. Any clip that I will be using in this demo, it has been obtained in that way. And that is perfectly fine for this course. When you're a student putting things together that you're not profiting off of, and unless the project dictates that you need to worry about copyright or something like that, or fair use, you're good to use whatever you want. It's for educational purposes. So we're going to steal and we're going to make stuff off of that. And that is very much in the spirit of that Everything is a Remix video that you guys should watch by the end of Tuesday, end of day Tuesday. Everything in art is a remix, so what we're going to end up doing for this project is remixing all these clips into a completely different final video, and that's your project. So I'm going to start by importing some media. You can click this and it's going to bring up everything on your computer for you to select from. You can also just drag clips into this window, a la like dragging a photo into your file in Photoshop. It works kind of the same way. Um, what I will say from the get-go is that you're going to want to have all of your video files, wherever you're getting them from, in the same place, and you don't want to move them. So for me, I have them all on my desktop in some sort of archive, basically. And you can add to this folder. So if you are browsing YouTube or the internet and you find some sort of video that you want to put in your video after you've downloaded a bunch more, you can, of course, put that video file into this folder and then import it in. So you don't need to import everything all at once. But what you don't want to do is take something that is currently hosted in your video project and move it out of this folder or move it from any old location. So say you download a video and then you end up moving the video that was in your downloads to desktop. It's going to make Premiere freak out and you're going to have to go through this process to relink that video, and it is just far more trouble than it's worth. If that happens to you, I, of course, am more than happy to try to fix that issue with you. Just shoot me an email, but um, just try to put it in all one folder. From the get-go, it's going to save you a lot of trouble, and that's a great way to work through things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start dragging some of these in. You need 3 source videos, at least 3 separate source videos. So that does not mean that I can take this one video and separate it into 3 sections and then have that count as 3 separate source videos. I need a full 1, 2, 3 videos in here for that to work. You can, of course, have more. And you need to end up like ideally pulling them from a bunch of different things. So these are all separate videos on YouTube, ripped them off of YouTube, now they're here. And you'll notice these are much longer than the source video I need to be, so I need to cut them down. This first quadrant here is just a container for all of your imported media. Or at least at the level that we're working with this, that is what it's going to function as for us. Despite these videos being present in here, that does not mean that I have a project really going at this moment. So there's nothing over here for me to play. There's nothing for me to reorder or organize over here, and there's nothing for me to like edit or add effects to, because I haven't, despite these being added to my media library, I haven't dragged anything over into the actual project itself. So just be aware of that. So your bottom left quadrant over here is where all of your imported media is going to live. Any video that you want to end up in your final project needs to be over here in some capacity. And you can, again, either click that import button, you can go up to File and import something, or you can just start dragging stuff into this. And that's going to apply to any images you would want. You can use images in this. Audio will go in here, all that stuff. So I'm going to start by adding this into my project over here. So I double clicked, just 1, 2, on this file or video file. And there's two kind of ways that you can start to do this process. You can either drag something into your project and it's going to plop that whole video in there. And I'm going to condense this down a little bit so you guys can see more. This is going to drag that whole 3-minute long file over here. And what we're going to start doing, let me clear my markers for just one moment. What we're going to start doing is trying to cut this down. So this quadrant over here, bottom right, is my actual project. So if you were to hit export, this lengthy video over here that now just contains the entirety of that file I imported, that is what would be exported. You can check how long it is over here, or you can sort of scrub around over here, but at the moment, again, it's the full duration of this clip. And then this top left window is going to be my sort of like editing or effects window. So just to recap, top left, editing a singular clip or effects. Top right is going to be the full project. However many videos you have, however many clips, this is your full project. Bottom right is going to be the editing for the whole project and your different sort of clips going on over here. And then bottom left over here is just going to be a container for all your imported files. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. If it doesn't, rewind and replay that section until it clicks. But the more I work in it, the more you'll see it as well. So again, this is the entire file. The way I can start to cut things down is just by, as I hover over this, you'll notice, I can start to just click and drag these if I want to and give it a kind of like rough sort of cut for this section. And I can also zoom in and zoom out of this by sort of pinching and pulling on my trackpad, or by clicking and dragging on this little bar down here. So that can just help you navigate things a little bit better. So I can sort of haphazardly start to cut down this clip. It's going to be a lot less precise. I'm going to have to eyeball it a lot. But you'll notice as you hover over the ends of this, you'll get the option to drag out your clip or cut it down on either end. And you can try to like place your marker where you want to start cutting and it will snap to that, but that's just a lot of work. The other thing you might be noticing is we have a bunch of different layers, so to speak, going on in here. And as I'm scrubbing through this, you might be hearing little bits of like chopped up audio. And that's because I pulled this from YouTube, so the audio and video are attached and linked together. If I select one by clicking on this, it's selecting both of them. Which when you're trying to cut down videos or scrub through things can get really, really overwhelming really quickly and also really, really annoying. The thing I hated the most in the lecture, like full semester version of this class, was trying to work on this and trying to play little bits and clips and just having this audio in the background. It was so annoying. So the first thing I like to do is actually unlink this before I even start cutting down this clip at all, because it's so deeply frustrating. So I'm going to do that. You'll notice over here we have a V1, V2, V3. So those are your video layers. The layers work exactly like Photoshop, which you'll see a little bit tomorrow when we start talking about things like opacity and effects and all of that. And then you have A1, A2, A3, and those are going to be your audio layers. They lock the same way as Photoshop layers do, and they also have visibility the same way that Photoshop layers do, which is really, really excellent. You also have all of these different tools over here. So you have track select forward tool, ripple edit, razor tool. It's really great. It's just going to cut. You can just click click it to cut your clips. It's excellent. So now these are split into separate sections. The other way to do that without using the razor tool, which is going to also work with markers, which I'll show you in a second, would again just be to start cutting things down like this and then copy pasting your clip and readjusting those sections. So two methods, two different ways, do whatever is most comfortable to you. So first thing I want to do is I want to separate the video and the audio layer here because it's annoying me. So I'm going to hold down the control key and click on my clip here. And the first thing I want to do is hit unlink. And now these are individually selectable. I could simply mute this layer if I wanted to, but I don't want this audio present in any section of my video. I don't want to use it, so I'm just going to select it and delete it. I'm okay with that. If I, for some reason, wanted to get the audio back, you'll notice this has the audio tied to this clip. I could just drag the clip back in, unlink them, delete the video instead of the audio, yada yada. So again, that's a control click, and you will find your unlink panel here. Obviously, there's nothing linked to this, so this is grayed out and non-selectable. And so now I have this clip that has no audio and is no longer annoying to be working with. What I want to do over here to make my life a little bit easier when I'm cutting stuff down is I want to start using some markers. Markers are going to be a nice little flag, so to speak, tool that you can use and drop in certain parts of your clip so that when you are dragging things around or using the razor, it will snap to that marker that you've placed and be a really, really precise way to cut stuff down and order things. So to drop markers, you're going to need to hop to a new window. And unfortunately, if the four window thing is a little bit overwhelming looking, I promise you will get used to it. You also sort of have to get used to it to work in Premiere. You've got to be able to hop between these and know what they are. So I want to hop to my editing window for a clip, just a clip editing. So I'm going to hop to my top left over here and select it. I first want to make sure that the clip I want to edit is selected over here. Just double click it, hop to my window, and now I want to go through and select what parts of this video I actually want to include. You can use the same clip multiple times or the same video multiple times in your final project. Again, you just need to at least have hit that 3 separate video inclusion in there. But if I wanted to take, video 1 and cut it up into 3 sections, that is totally fine as well. So it doesn't need to just be super, super linear. So I know I want this section of this peony here, but I want to be really precise with how I'm cutting it. So I want to get that exact frame that it transitions to. So the same way that I can zoom in this window using this little bar, I can zoom in this one. And as I zoom in, it will split it literally frame to frame. So I can be really, really annoying and precise with it. So this is the last frame of that lily. Then we're going to get to that peony. And I know I want to cut it to this section. So I'm going to go down here or hit M, and I'm just going to click, and it's going to add a little marker right here. So this little green guy right by my cursor is that marker I've added. And now I'm going to navigate all the way through the end of that clip and get the very last frame of it, and again, add a marker. Now I'm going to zoom back out of that video, and I'm just pinching on my trackpad, but again, you can use this guy, this little bar over here, and navigate it the same way. I will grab this section here of this iris, zoom in a little bit so I can get it a wee bit more precise. I don't particularly want the red flower transition, so I'm going to wait until that disappears on that frame. And I'm just clicking and dragging this little cursor around. So I want this frame. I'm going to drop a marker. I'll keep the daisies in and just end on this section. Drop a marker. Zoom back. And I'll take this little dandelion puff. So again, I don't necessarily need, and you might have noticed, I don't need to be zooming in if I just get really fussy with like my timing of things and how much I'm dragging my cursor back and forth, but it can just make your life a little bit easier and a little bit more precise if you are actively zooming in to some of these things. So I can get, again, right down to the exact frame that clip starts on and to the exact frame of which it's going to end on. So now I have this cut into little sections, and I'll zoom back out. So you'll notice I have this peony, the iris, and the daisies here, and then the dandelion here. And you'll see all these little marker flags, and you'll also now see those marker flags have been dropped into this actual video over here, where I'm working on my actual project and not just my clip. So while I'm over here, I can, again, zoom in a little bit, and I can either grab my edges and click and drag them in, which it'll now snap to. And if you're on a MacBook, you'll even feel like a weird little, it's like that weird little click of the trackpad or like pulse that trackpad sometimes does when it adheres to this. So now it'll snap exactly to that section, or I can go in, you should be able to go in with your razor and start cutting exact sections of this clip. So cut, 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 cut. And this is a lot of little slices, but you can look at your markers and see exactly what clip you were hoping for, and you can just delete the sections that were not marked. And so now as I navigate through this, you should get your peony, your iris, and your daisies, and your dandelion. And they're all nicely cut together. So I'm going to undo that and just do it one more time for you guys. We'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see exactly what's going on. And as a note too, because I know these programs, so I'm working through them quickly. If you guys ever want something repeated or slowed down, I'm more than happy to record an extra video and either send it to you or post it on Canvas. Just shoot me an email. And if I'm not at my other job or something, I will record it right then and there and post it, or I will record it when I get home that night and I can upload it for you guys. So whatever you want in depth, just let me know, just like this. So again, we have our markers that we viewed over here, and I want to cut things down. I could go in and I can drag this one and then the other, and then Command C, Command V, this, copy paste, and then drag it over to my next section. That's one way to do things, and that'll completely work. Or, undoing all of that, I can just go in with my little razor tool over here, and it'll snap to my markers. I can click, 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 click on all those markers. And I know that the video section I wanted was in between those markers, so I will just click and delete everything that was not that. Now I have my clips nice and ordered from that one video. So I can go in, I can click and drag them around, and now if I go through and play this, I have 33 seconds of flowers blooming extremely slowly, which might be a little bit mind-numbing. But they've been all cut down really nicely and neatly, and I'm not getting any sort of like weird starts or finishes to those clips that aren't intentional, which is the goal here. That's why I would use these markers to make sure I'm getting exactly a start and an end of when I want, and why I'm using that razor tool, which is going to cut them really quickly, really cleanly, and save me a lot of work. So that should end nice and good. Perfect. So the thing here is these are moving really slowly, and it's also really, really, I don't know, straightforward. It's all one video. So the first thing I do want to show is that you can speed up these clips. If this middle one is like moving far too slow for me and I want to speed it up, or you want to make something move slower, control click on that clip, and you're going to have speed duration as an option midway through that panel. And this is where you can up the speed or lower the speed, and you'll see what the reflected time of that clip is. So currently it's 16 seconds. If I wanted to speed it up, if I moved it to 200, it is now going to be 8 seconds. And this will move much faster than it was before. So that is an option there. And again, it'll work in reverse. So I could slow something down exponentially if I wanted it to be. And then the other thing that you'll notice here, hopefully, again with the V1, V2, V3, is that these work like layers. So I can drag these up and reorder them if need be. And that also means that it has a lot of the same properties as a Photoshop sort of layers panel would. So I can make use of things like opacity, or effects, blend modes and what have you, and have these start to layer over each other and be a little bit less like a clean cut spliced video. That is up to you. You don't have to make use of that option if you don't want to. We will get into those effects tomorrow. But just so that you're aware, these are all like layerable and reorderable. So that also means if I drag this clip partially over top the end of this clip, as we near right here, this is going to cut into and start the next one. So because this is sitting on top, so read from the top down. And that's kind of how you start working in Premiere. The same thing is going to apply to audio here. You will drop in your audio files and drag them over, and you can cut and splice and reorder them in the same exact way. We'll talk about audio a little bit more tomorrow. But same thing, we have all of these different clips that I can sort of scrub through and see how they work. And so I can go ahead and grab this. And I can you'll notice I have markers already in place here. I can sort of pre-mark them before I drag them over here. And then I can cut them down, plop this in, and again, cut, cut, cut. That one was a little inaccurate. Cut, 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 cut. And then go back with my cursor, and I can start to grab all these guys I want and reorder them. So I would highly suggest, which I didn't do, I would highly suggest unlinking these and removing the audio if you don't want to deal with them before you start splicing things, because as you've seen, I didn't do that, and now I have to do it 3 times instead of just 1 time. So again, just control clicking and unlinking things. The other important thing to note when you're starting to import your material here is going to be that your video project, your final project, will start off as whatever size or resolution as the first clip that you import. So your project needs to be 1920 by 1080p, which is going to be considered an HD resolution. You need to make sure that your first clip that you import is going to be that 1920 by 1080, which you can see over here. Otherwise, your final resolution is going to be wonky and you're going to have to go through extra steps to change that. You can totally change it. I can show you how if you get into that scenario, but ideally you're not going to. In that sense, also, this is not quite like the Photoshop assignment where if you want a horizontal composition or a vertical composition, it didn't matter as long as it was 8.5 by 11. We're aiming for this aspect ratio resolution here that 1920 by 1080 offers. So no vertical videos, please. So that also means that if you are taking a video that you shot on your phone and it was shot vertically, you're going to need to do a little bit of post editing on that where you're like changing this cropping or zooming in on things, which I'll show tomorrow. So if that arises, just be aware that's something you need to do, and make sure or try to make sure that the first clip or set of clips that you're adding is going to be that HD resolution, so that you are getting the correct aspect ratio for this project. So that's kind of the start of that. Over here, again, can zoom in and out, can also zoom in and out or stretch things out horizontally or vertically. And all of these panels, as you're beginning in Premiere, are reorganizable. So if you've started to, import all your clips and it's getting quite long, you can fully drag things over here. If you don't mind this one column look, then you can have far more working space down at the bottom. Just remember, these are all still in a quadrant kind of view. So when we're talking about, bottom left, it'll still be this quadrant here, even if it's tiny. So those are just things to be aware of. As a final note, when you're starting off in Premiere for today, make sure you save your file and save frequently. Premiere is one of those programs that if your computer's not plugged in or you're running a lot of different programs at once, it can start to crash the more things you add in. And it is not a program that auto saves. Just like Photoshop, it is not auto saving for you. And a lot of these programs that we're using are, they are not auto saving. So be sure that you save. Just hit Command S occasionally throughout your project, or make sure you're going up to File, Save, and make sure you know where your file location is, and you will be good to go. Don't let the many different interfaces of this program scare you. It can be quite fun just to splice stuff together. And in particular for this project, it does not need to be adhering to any type of theme the way that our collage did. So the collage was themed around the natural world or however you interpret that. This can be whatever you want. So if you're into like cult classic horror movies and you want to do some sort of like tiny little 1 minute take on that, go for it. If you are into this more ambient nature kind of thing, that is a perfect, video theme to work with. It does have to have some sort of cohesive theme or concept, but it doesn't have to be serious either. I've had students in the past make really excellent, very like silly, kind of stupid videos that were funny, and that's a great way to guarantee yourself some sort of, good grade is if I get a laugh out of it. So don't worry about it having to be serious. If you want it to be serious, go for it, but it does need to have some sort of cohesive concept. So make sure the clips that you are selecting work together. If they don't work together, make sure it's a productive, like, don't work together kind of thing. Save frequently, save often, know where your files are. And that is how you cut down clips and start ordering them in Premiere. That should be a good basis for you guys to get started. If you have any questions, I have the full day off, so shoot me anything, send me anything over email, and I am more than happy to start working it out with you. So that is that for Premiere. Starting with, we will talk about effects and type and all the different fun stuff you can do in it tomorrow. Bye.